Very special guest here in studio. We're pleased to have Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley joining us here this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming in and taking the time out of your busy day to come and see us. And there are so many different issues, of course, that are pressing for folks at home. A lot of things that we can talk about. And I think a good place to start here, we've had a lot in the news over the past couple of days in regards to Russia's war in Ukraine. Now, you have a very, very unique position. You're on the Foreign Relations Committee in the U.S. Senate, and I think you have a different viewpoint that a lot of folks might have here at home. So tell everybody at home, what exactly are you seeing here with the ongoing talks that happened over the past few days? What is the future here?
Well, let's put out the frame first. And the frame is that a dictator, Putin, with the power of Russia, has invaded a democracy, Ukraine, that shares our values. They have thrown out previous leaders who tried to put under Russia's thumb. They are standing for a vision of freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and freedom to determine their future through their own elections. So they are fighting for the values that we cherish here in America. And it's so important that our nation stand with them. And what we have seen with President Trump is he has more of a buddy-buddy relationship with Putin, and gave Zelensky a very hard time, the president of Ukraine, when he came on a previous trip. Now we're in a mixed zone. This meeting in Alaska, the president went into it and said you're going to be very upset if it didn't end up in a ceasefire, and that we had to support Ukraine. And he came out of it saying basically the same values that Putin had expressed. So that triggered something a couple days ago extraordinary. A whole massive number of European leaders, prime ministers and presidents, came to Washington, D.C. to stand with Zelensky and say, we stand together for the vision of supporting democracy and government by the people, and that we must stand with Ukraine. So that's where we are right now.
So what do you see as the pathway forward?
The conversation recognizes that there are areas that were in Ukraine's official territory that Russia has occupied for some time, even before this war started. And that path to the Crimean Peninsula is going to be something that Putin insists on holding. I don't think anyone believes that Russia is going to be dislodged from all that territory. Meanwhile, however, it needs to be minimized, the amount of geography that Russia controls, and very importantly, that there are massive security for guarantees, if you will, by Europe and the United States as the new boundaries are developed. That's the essential deal. And that security guarantee is what the Europeans came to say. It has to be there, and we did see President Trump move in that direction.
Yeah, and I would say those are two of the big points that we heard a lot of talk about, the idea of territory swap as well as the idea of security guarantees. So what sort of security guarantees do you think would truly make a difference in protecting Ukraine's sovereignty?
Well, President Trump has taken off the table the possibility of NATO membership, which would be the most important and most serious, because under Article 5, attack on one is attack on all, and we respond collectively. So the question now is, can you create an Article 5 structure without the formality of NATO? And that would probably mean European troops serving in Ukraine, so that if Ukraine was attacked, it would trigger a European response, and the United States would support that through funding and munitions and so forth. That seems to be the evolving structure that is not as strong as NATO membership, but maybe resolves this difference and provides enough security to make a peace deal work.
Okay. Well, to take things closer to home, something that you have many times brought up in the past, facial recognition technology at the TSA. Just yesterday, we heard the news that a new program is going into place, the idea of these biometric e-gates going up in 3 different airports. I know in the past that you have mentioned the idea of keeping Oregonians' security, privacy, safety, and the ability to opt out of situations like this. Where do you see this technology going now with this latest news?
Yes, it's scary technology, and one of the reasons I've been so alerted to this is I served as chair of the China Commission on Human Rights. We saw China use facial recognition to help enslave 1 million Uyghurs. They have sold that ability to many nations that use it to monitor dissent. So it becomes a governmental power to track people in their demonstrations, to track people in their opinions, and to basically prevent people from exercising a right to assemble or a right to speak. We even saw Hungary saying that they were using it, European countries saying that they were going to use it to prevent people from attending a demonstration here recently. So it is a very scary power to put in government hands, and I've been leading the fight to say that we must maintain the ability to use documentation like a driver's license or a passport rather than facial recognition at airports to travel domestically, because essentially what we see is if you build that infrastructure of a national facial database and everyone has to use it, then it gets expanded to a camera at the train stations, then at the bus stations, then at the car rental stations, and then why not on the entry into the stadium, and the government's tracking you everywhere. It's a huge threat to freedom and privacy, and no undertaking and no conversations ever authorized this by TSA. There was legislation that said they could do pilots with biometric information back when people were talking about using a fingerprint. Well, a fingerprint is very different. It doesn't create the same threat as cameras that recognize you by your face. So I'm ringing the alarm bells, and I had a bill that was to be marked up in committee 2 weeks ago, and at the last minute, it was pulled off the agenda because of the airlines and the tourist bureaus pursuing, well, they like this.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be working very hard to get it back onto the committee agenda, because this does not inhibit the ability of the airports to expand the opportunity for those who want to opt into it, but let's protect privacy and freedom. We may be thinking like this system, when it's expanding so fast, it's so cheap to expand, 20 years from now, we may be monitored everywhere we go, and bring in a government that wants to suppress dissent, and we're in big trouble.
Sure, and I think a lot of people do have that sort of a 1984 mindset to technology of this, and the idea that it could be misused in the future. Now, bringing this to something that has been a hot button topic here locally, the idea of license plate monitoring cameras, flock cameras. I realize it's not an apples to apples, but the Eugene Police Department has installed quite a few of these. The Springfield Police Department now working on installing several as well. Your colleague in the Senate, Senator Ron Wyden, we actually have one of his statements that he released a couple of weeks back talking about the flock cameras, that he worked with the flock company in an effort to adopt stronger privacy protections for other states, specifically trying to match the privacy protections that flock has ensured with the state of Illinois. For a lot of folks, I know there is a concern that flock cameras could be misused in the future. I realize this is not facial recognition technology, but the idea of safety, security, do you have any position on the use of these cameras expanding here?
Ask yourself, where is going to happen with that data? Is it going to be assembled into a database of tracking Americans everywhere they drive? Well, that is a similar issue. Mm-hmm. It is not as powerful technology as facial recognition, but it does involve the possibility of a database that tracks people. Is it being used simply to identify cars that are unregistered, and then the database is deleted after 24 hours? I mean, the details matter on how the database is managed.
Sure, yeah, so the idea of use is really the key there, what it is used for moving forward. And well, that was what Senator Wyden was also trying to guarantee, the idea of the proper use. Okay, well, that's good to hear. Another issue, of course, that has come into the news just in the past couple of days, the idea of mail-in voting. President Trump saying that he wants to put an end to mail-in voting. Of course, Oregon, the forerunner of mail-in voting here in the nation. What is your reaction to that?
Well, the opposite needs to happen. We need to guarantee the opportunity for mail-in voting across the country, and here's why. What Trump's trying to do is say everyone has to vote on Election Day. Election Day is easy to manipulate. You take those precincts where you don't want people to vote, and you put in fewer booths. You put in staff that doesn't move quickly. You locate them in places where there's no parking. You put out false information about where they're located. You move them from one election to the next so people go to the wrong place. All of this is very effective in depressing the ability to vote. And we've seen it time and time again. There was one study in Georgia that found that inner city precincts waited, like people were in line like 4 to 5 times longer than they were in rural precincts where the state government wanted people to vote. This is discrimination of a core American value, the opportunity to have your vote heard. Vote by mail counters that by giving everyone the opportunity to cast their ballot, and you can't move the precinct location, you can't have the machines accidentally shut down and all these other manipulations. So Trump is going the wrong direction. He's helping to increase a corruption of voting. Vote by mail is an antidote to that. It's incredibly important. In my bill for the people, Senate Bill number 1, where we came within 2 votes of going to a talking filibuster in which we would have eventually been able to implement it, guaranteed that every state needed to provide some form of vote by mail and some form of early voting, again, to protect Americans from governments that try to keep them from voting.
All right. Well, Senator Merkley, thank you so much for your time here today.
You're
thank
welcome.
you for all your insight as well.
Thank
we
you very
appreciate
much.
having you here.
Good to be with you.